Looking at you, Dada, time for you more. Oh, you ask me sick.
Okay, Ziki. Genesis 40, the dreams of two prisoners. Sometime after this, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Verse 2, and Pharaoh was angry with the two officers, the chief butler and the chief baker. Verse 3, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. Verse 4, the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he waited on them, and they continued for some time in custody. Verse 5, and one night they both dreamed, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each his own dream, and each dream with its own meaning. Verse 6, when Joseph came to them in the morning and saw them, they were troubled. Verse 7, so he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in custody in the master's house, why are your faces downcast today? Verse 8, they said to him, we have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, I beg you. Verse 9, so the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream there was a vine before me. Verse 10, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Verse 11, Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Verse 12, and Joseph said to him, this is its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Verse 13, within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. Siki, you got to listen to the worship. And you shall place Pharaoh's cup, not until after the worship, in his hand as formerly when you were his butler. Verse 14, but remember me when it is well with you, and do me the kindness, I beg you, to make mention of me to Pharaoh, and so get me out of this house. Verse 15, for I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here...
How about Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph. He's interpreting the dream for the butler, and he's saying, remember me when you go back, okay? Because I did nothing wrong. Now I'm here in this jail. I was stolen from the Hebrews. And here also, I've done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. Remember, that was Potiphar's wife who lied about him. That's why he's there. Verse 16, when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was very favorable, he said to Joseph, I also had a dream. There were 3 cake baskets on my head. Verse 17, and in the uppermost basket, there are all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket in my head. Verse 18, and Joseph answered, this is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Verse 19, within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on the tree.
Why?
And the birds will eat the flesh from you. It doesn't say why, it just says that's the interpretation.
Who hates?
The baker, in 3 days, Pharaoh's going to hang him, and then the birds are going to eat his brain from his skull. Okay? That's the interpretation of the bakers. The butler is going to get set free and going to go back to his work working for Pharaoh. The baker is going to get hung, and his head's going to get come off.
Joseph?
No, Joseph is interpreting the dreams for the butler and the baker. Okay? The baker's gonna die in 3 days. The butler is gonna go back to his old job. And Joseph said, hey, butler, remember me when you go back. Verse 20, on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants and lifted up the head of the chief butler and the head of the chief baker among his servants. Verse 21, he restored the chief butler to his butlership, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Verse 22, but he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Verse 23, yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot about him. Okay? That's it. You have any questions about Genesis 40? No. That's it. Okay.